me to face-to-face. It's not our normal Wednesday hangout on Google+, but instead it's part of our day-long sports business and sports marketing conference. We welcome those of you that are here. We just finished up speaking with Jeff Yoakum from Game Face Inc., and now we have Jimmy Delaney, who is the 15 years down there, it's hard to believe, Director of Marketing and Sales at University of Tennessee. In the interest of full disclosure, Jimmy was one of my students back in Wisconsin more than 15 years ago. If you listen to Jeff Yoakum, Jimmy might have actually a rather unique track to where he's at. He started in high school, picked up an internship and a college scholarship to go down to UT, and he's continued to work his way up through there. So welcome, Jimmy. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Thank you. And obviously would not be where I am without you, so thanks for having me.
Oh, we appreciate it. What I'd love to have you do is just start out and tell us a little bit about that path, a little bit about what you do down there at UT, and then pick up on your topic for today, which is developing an overall advertising and branding platform. I'll interrupt you now and then with a question, but mostly we're going to let you tear through it and talk to us.
All right, sounds good. Again, like Jeff had said, I started my sport marketing career back in, I guess, 1996 in sportainment, which was a class that he taught. We also did sports marketing for the high school sports, which at that time there weren't a lot of folks that were doing that, so it was a really unique deal. For me, the biggest appeal was I wanted to play sports but wasn't good enough, so this was another way to be around it. Did sportainment for 2 years, ended up meeting a fellow by the name of Ron Gotch that was the director of marketing for Tennessee. Had the opportunity to come down here, was a student intern, if you want to call it that, for my first 5 years of undergrad. Basically, if I wasn't in class, I was working, so I got an incredible amount of experience, and that is, yes, what I tell my mother as well about my college experience. But what I decided to do was this is what I wanted, so I did a lot, asked for more responsibility, did the things that people didn't want to do. Back then, before golf carts and whatnot, I actually walked campus and put up flyers. Now I think our students are a little spoiled. We got 3 golf carts that they ride around in. But throughout my undergrad, just took on sports, took on some of the smaller sports, some of our Olympic sports here, had the opportunity to do the marketing for them, and then went on to grad school here. Actually, Joan Cronin, the women's athletics director. When I first got here, I told her, you're going to get 4 years out of me, and then I'm going back to Wisconsin. And she actually got 5 years of undergrad and 2 years of grad school out of me, so she did a really good job on selling Tennessee. My last semester of graduate school, the director of marketing took another position. At that time was a woman named Carolyn Wares. So in February of 2004, I was completing my master's, finishing my research project. I was the interim director of marketing, and at the time looking for a job because I didn't know what was going to happen. Was fortunate 7 days after walking across the stage for my master's, was hired by Tennessee. In September of 2009, became the senior director of marketing. And before that, obviously in the news lately, there's been some news about Tennessee combining their athletic department. Marketing had combined probably back in 2005. We just realized that there was a lot of redundancies and duplication in our efforts, so we brought it all together, and then a few years after that was promoted to senior director. Right now, my main responsibility is a majority of our branding and advertising. Also have responsibilities with football, women's basketball, softball, as well as working with our licensing office, and then do a lot with social media and just all of our promotions in terms of branding, TV commercials, radio spots, you name it. Do a little bit of everything. So I tell people I spend all day making other people's days, so that's really what my job is.
Sounds to me like it keeps you pretty busy. Now, this announcement PA coming through the background probably brings back high school memories for you, and every teacher out there listening can share the frustration of getting that in the background while you're doing something live. So we'll try to ignore them best we can. Just going back a little bit, going back to high school and even in your college days, what do you wish you would have done more to prepare you for college sports? And what did you do that maybe wasn't as important as you thought it was at the time? A little bit of more career advice before you jump in and
Right.
tell us how you build the brand down there at Tennessee.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I look back on it, I think the two things that I learned in high school that helped me the most once I got to Tennessee was, and again, back then, graphic design programs, a PageMaker and all of that, they weren't mainstream. Everybody wasn't photoshopping and all of that. But I think what I tried to do was learn a few skills that I knew that not everybody had. And running actual promotions, using the different technologies that we had back then that colleges were using now. So, I think the computer programs, the stadium click effects, but then also actually, you let us run promotions during the basketball games, during the football games. So being that team leader, really, when I came here and there was a group of, 8 of us student workers, and they were like, okay, who's going to take charge? I felt comfortable enough in that I had done it before to say, okay, I'm gonna do that, And then in my undergrad here, the one thing that I chose to do, and again, it's kind of in my wheelhouse, and it's helped me now into my career, is I really focused on the graphic design part of it. So much of what we do in marketing is visual, and I think creating visual things, being able to write, to a visual standpoint has really helped progress my career, and which is why I've kind of geared myself more towards the advertising and branding platform. I work a lot with our athletic broadcasting guys, with our multimedia rights holders. There's a lot of other departments that come to me and say, hey, can you help us with this? Because we want a more creative visual aspect to it. So I think what I found was, like, internally, what is it that I love most about working in college sports and what I love doing, and then I try to apply that the most. So this past 18 months, I've been working a lot with football on football recruiting, which you would say, okay, you're a marketing guy. You're supposed to be selling tickets and radio spots and getting people there and making sure they have fun and all of that. But in college sports, the lifeblood of any team that we have is recruiting. You're only as good as the kids you have. So what we did was we looked at football recruiting as a business and as a sport, and developed a marketing plan for it, developed a brand platform for it, made everything consistent, down to the down to the credentials that they wear, to the letters that they get at home. Everything, if they were going to get touched by Tennessee, everything had that consistent look to it. So I think, in undergrad, what I did was, instead of trying everything and doing 10%, 10%, 10%, I tried to identify a little quicker what I really wanted to do, and did more 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. The other thing I did that really helped me was I tried to understand what everybody else in this athletic department does. In undergrad, some of it I couldn't, it was over my head, but I wanted an appreciation for what the event management staff did, what the ticket office does, what the athletic trainers do, our fundraisers and the Tennessee Fund. Just because if I come up with an idea or we come up with something, how is it going to affect them? How is it going to affect the concession stand? How does it affect parking? So I tried to, again, use my time in undergrad on somebody else's dime to figure out, what all I needed to know. If I was going to make a mistake, who did it impact and what could I learn from that? So this summer I was at NACMA, which is our national convention, and the one thing I told people was, and there was a lot of undergrad and graduates and first year folks in college athletics, and they were saying, how do I get to where you are? And I said, when you go back to your campus, introduce yourself to 2 people you've never met before in your department and figure out what they do. And then from there, the next month, do 2 more and 2 more and 2 more. And I said, you can find out so much more about college athletics and how to be successful if you understand what everybody does.
Jimmy, I want you to not gloss over too much one of the parts. Then we'll quit worrying about your past and we'll jump back up to the present. But I think that one of the things that you demonstrated, and I think that it paid off for you, because you had mentioned how you would do the things that others didn't want to do. I think that's great advice. And one of the things you manifested earlier on was you got a little grief from living at the school from some of your peers when they were going out. having fun, doing whatever, going with their friends and parties,
Mhm.
and et cetera. And you spent, you got done with your classes, and then you were there till 10, 11 o'clock at night, 2 or 3 nights a week at least. It's rare, and I commend you for that. And hopefully we can implement or instill this, I guess, in other students. You already had a vision of what you wanted to do, and you were perceptive enough to know that putting in these hours in high school might not have been the top of your list for how to have fun in your life, but you made it fun and you knew it was going to be important. And I don't want to speak for Ron Gotch, but I know that was part of that is what influenced him and made him feel comfortable giving away a scholarship to Tennessee to some kid from Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I did know early on, which obviously helps. I mean, I think some people go throughout high school or college and they're not sure what they want to do, or they try something and then they realize that's not exactly it. But I did know pretty early on this is what I wanted to do, and it was an area that I was really, really interested in and felt like would tap into the different assets that I had. But there were a lot of times people going out late, and I wouldn't go out because I had to get up early. I knew it was going to be a long day. Waking up at 8 a.m. and my roommate saying, "But you don't have class till 11." I was like, "I know, but I have to go to work right now." If I look back on it, and I've talked to a lot of different people at some of the high schools around here, obviously some of the stuff at NACMA, and people always ask me, looking back on it, would you change anything? And I wouldn't, because at the end of the day, I still had a great college experience. I got to spend a lot of time with my friends, who are still some of my best friends today. Never felt like I cheated time with my family when I had it, and got to where I wanted to be. I mean, Tennessee, I would consider as a major university. Sitting in what some call the big chair. So and that's what I wanted. And you got to give up to get to where you are. And it's funny that you say that a lot of times people were giving me grief about it. I actually got a text message from a high school classmate, still friends with, talk to every now and again. She sent me a message about a week to 10 days ago and just saying how, she goes, "I don't want to sound corny, but I'm really proud of the fact that you not only left, but you stuck with it." So I think when I look back on it and say, "Oh, I could have hung out with her more," 15 years later, she's saying, "Hey, I really appreciate what you did and what you're doing." So, and I look at my experience now, and what I'm able to do is a lot of those people that I didn't get to spend as much time with before, I say, "Hey, you know what, come to a game. Let me roll out the orange carpet for you." There's give and take, but you got to create your opportunities.
One of the teachers here asked a good question, and I'm going to give a little background on it. When you were doing things in Wisconsin, in high school, we weren't necessarily known for having great fan attendance, great support, etc. And as he points out, Tennessee's known for their rabid fan base. Do you perceive a difference, not only in your experience, because that's the only place you've been in college, but you work with other colleges? Do you see a difference in marketing in an environment where the fans are like they are at Tennessee versus maybe other sports marketing opportunities? Because I've only been down there with you once, and forgive me, but that blasted ugly orange is everywhere. I mean, you guys have definitely blanketed it. When I found out you could buy University of Tennessee orange garbage bags that were licensed, I figured there was no end to what you could license. The orange paint is licensed. How is it different working in that environment versus somewhere where they might not be quite as enthusiastic?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and we do obviously have Orange 151 everywhere. I've got a blazer I'd put on if you want me to, but it might blind people. There was a major difference, obviously, because back in Kenosha, Bradford was not. They weren't Tremper. Tremper was, great at football, and St. Joe's was great at basketball. And you come to Tennessee, and obviously early in my career. My freshman year, women's basketball won their third national championship in a row. In my sophomore year, the football team won their national championship, and I thought I'd pick the greatest place ever. And then, throughout the years, there was some ebb and flow. Obviously, women's basketball won 2 more national championships and was a part of that. Football's had their ups and downs. I mean, right now we're not the greatest football team, and we're not to what our fans would call Tennessee standards. So right now, because we were held to such a high standard, I think that we, as an athletic department and as a marketing department, have to try harder because our fans are angry. The good thing is they still care. The fact that they're angry means they care. If they stop caring, then I think we might be in trouble. But no matter what the market is, there's always people that are interested. It's just how do you get out there and how do you reach them? And right now, what we have to tell our fans is look, you've been with us through thick and thin. Here, this is the thin time. Don't abandon us. The reason we are who we are is because you make us who we are. And part of the reason I was a few minutes late was because there was a new Sentinel reporter in here asking about the transition between Pat Summitt to Holly Warlick, our new head coach, and did we have any drop off? And I said, no, look, this is still Tennessee. Like, this is what we do. Granted, Pat built this for women's basketball here, but we still have an expectation of ourselves, and our fans have an expectation of us, and we have to remain in that. So I think, but looking back at Bradford, Kenosha is a smaller market. There's maybe not the same success. So no matter where you are, the market might be smaller, the teams might be smaller, the success may not always be there, but the fans are. So one of the things I was telling the reporter is we have to go to where our fans are. There's so many things going on nowadays that back in the old days it used to just be, hey, there's a basketball game, they're really good, gates open at 2:00. There's a football game, they're really good, gates open at 2:00. And now we have to go to where our fans are. So the rules of the game are always the same. You just have to play them to your market. Maybe there's only one radio station as opposed to 6, but how do you get the most out of that one radio station? And I think that's some of the stuff that we did back in the day, was try to use the tools that we had in Kenosha and use them to our best. Whereas now, obviously Knoxville's a big market. There's 3 major radio stations. There's 3 major TV stations, and they're always talking about us, the good, bad, and the ugly. So our job now is to try to say, hey, it's always the good, it's always the good. So there's challenges in every market, but I think there's also tools in every market, and finding those people that love, the high school, love the sport, love the community college, whatever it might be, those people are there.
Well, I think you make some good points there, and I think one of the things that's challenging, especially for our viewers and listeners, is to recognize what things were like when you first got there. If I remember right, there were several years where women's basketball outdrew average attendance, half of the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't think people really realize what how passionate a fan base was for women's sports. How many times that doggone Rocky Top was played at football games.
I love it.
If you're talking about the branding end of things, tell me what the most important decision either you've made or has been made at Tennessee that's helped establish and will continue to help you establish and grow that brand.
Yeah, I think it's been about 3.5 years ago now. We decided, there was a time obviously in Tennessee's history that there was a women's athletics department and a men's athletics department, and there was double people for every job. And when I was with women's athletics, every sport kind of had their own theme, and the creative looked different, and the number of athletes on the poster looked different, and what the radio spots said looked different. And then about 3.5, 4 years ago, myself and Doug Coase, we sat down and we said, we are killing ourselves here, and we're diluting our brand, and not, hey, we got 2 logos and that's great, and I think that's what makes Tennessee special. But we said, what is it about this place that brings everything together? Not men's, not women's, not Vols, not Lady Vols. What is it about this place? And it goes back to the fans, is that our fans, they are rabid, and our fans, Tennessee is called Big Orange Country, obviously because of the color, and they call themselves, the Big Orange Faithful. And when we thought about it, and I'm sure a lot of college towns are this way too, but nobody plans a wedding on a Saturday in Tennessee when the football team's playing. They don't do it. Other people don't do this, they don't do that. When you talk to people, hey, what are you doing? Well, I was going to go over there, but the football team's playing today. Little league teams, AYSO soccer play really early in the morning or really late in the evening, depending on kickoff. And all of this started to kind of come to us. There's grandparents that brought their sons and daughters, who then brought their grandkids, and there was this generational fan, and you'd ask people, why do you go to football games or basketball games or baseball games? Well, it's just what we've always done, and we took all of those elements and we said, okay, here's the deal. To these people, life is orange and white. It's, a lot of times they're either deciding between what they do outside of sports or what they do with sports. So, a lot of people say, hey, well, it's black and white. Well, okay, we say life is orange and white, and we use that theme, and we're still continuing to use that theme as our overall arching theme for Tennessee athletics. And when you look at the creative billboards, newspaper, magazine, posters, schedule cards, anything that we put online, any interactive, whatever it might be, we decided to take all of that and say it's going to have the same look and feel, it's going to have the same treatment to it, and it's always going to be tagged with life is orange and white. And there's variations of it. In a radio spot we might say, because around here women's basketball is life and life is orange and white. Or, to Tennessee fans it's life and life is orange and white. And the branding spot that we first came out with to really introduce it, it showed people living their lives, but with orange and white mixed into it. There was a barn with a power tee on the side of it. There was a bride and groom with a wedding cake. There was a wagon. There was a grandfather and his grandson. And we just wanted to say, look, you all live this each and every day. Now we're bringing it all together. No matter what you look at, you know that it's Tennessee. So that's probably one of the coolest things that I think we've done over the last 3 years, is because people now start talking about it. You see people using it on other products, T-shirts, whatever it might be. So,
what did you have any issues with, not necessarily coaches, but perhaps coaches or just teams having an ego of how are we, especially some of the Olympic sports, how do we stand out when
Right.
you're doing such a uniform and consistent brand, but how do we stand out from everybody else?
And we have that, and we still have it. And we actually had it this summer with women's basketball because, a lot of times recruiting, again, and that's why recruiting is just as much a part about what we do as anything else. Recruiting comes in and they want their own look. They want their envelope to stick out on the table amongst all the other schools. So they do. They want a new they want a new slogan, a new feel, a new this, a new that, or whatever it was. And we said, look, we promise you that if we can have all of this look cohesive and we can have all of this look as one, not only will you get a bump off of your own stuff, but you get a bump off everybody else's. Because when they see that, they'll think Tennessee. They'll see the golf poster and say, okay, yeah, that's Tennessee, because I've seen that on volleyball and soccer and baseball and, men's basketball and rowing or whatever it might be. And there was a time when with football, again, they came in and football was, look, yes, we understand life is orange and white, but we want something for ourselves. And we worked with them and we said, we're going to do a variation of it, but it's still going to be in the same vein. And so for football, we did, it's not a big thing, it's everything, which again, still translates into life is orange and white, because on Saturdays, it's what people do. They don't go off and get married. They don't, have a picnic or whatever it might be. It's not a big thing. It's everything. So we fight it, and there's times where, the tennis team, because typically what we do, and I got a few examples I can show them, but we put one athlete on the poster to really showcase what's going on. Well, tennis has got 6 guys. Well, I really want all 6 guys on there. And we say, no, you're going to dilute what we're trying to do here. We'll use one guy on the poster, one guy on the schedule card, one guy online or whatever it might be. But we have to tell them that obviously, the sum of the parts is greater if everything looks the same, if people look around and there's no mistaking what Tennessee is.
How do you go into a coach and essentially say, hey, coach, you coach, I'm the marketing guy, let me market? How do you do that without becoming unemployed?
It's a fine art that I don't think that any of us have mastered, and if somebody does, they're going to sell it and be rich. But just like if we could figure out how to make students attend every event, we'd be better too. But the biggest thing is trust. Coaches, you have to understand, they're all type A personalities, and we know that. That's why they're coaches. They also, they really just want what's best for them in their program, so they want to know that you care. And again, not that you're trying to blow smoke, but if you go in there and you say, Coach, I've actually really thought about this. I'm not just, oh, hey, you caught me off guard and here's my token answer, but we've really thought about this and we feel like this is the best thing to do, and we're staying consistent with what we've got going on. So I know that you want to get 6 guys on there, and maybe we can look at a few different variations of what we do. If you think by having all 6 guys in the poster is going to help you in recruiting so that when you bring another guy on campus and he sees his face there, well, let us help you work on some other stuff that you can have laying around your office. Again, consistent with what we're doing, not varying off of that. Maybe there's some flyers, maybe there's just some creative pieces that you can do. So a lot of times, coaches they're strong-willed, they're strong personalities, they want to win. We tell them they have to win, and they look at us as people that are there to help them. And there are times when you say no, you have to say no for a reason and feel good about what you do. And obviously you gain credibility when it works out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. They come back and they say, you said no and I disagree with you and it flopped. And you say, well, that's just part of what we do. It's almost like, you can't back down from it. To gain their respect. And a lot of them at the end of the day, they just want to be heard. They want to know you're listening to them. We've got 19 sports here. Obviously, different ones rank in terms of what they bring in from a revenue standpoint, but we treat all of them equally. I mean, there's so many things you can do for the rowing team. You can do much more for baseball than you can for rowing, but everything we can do for rowing, we do. So it's just showing them you care.
That was a great transition to a question that Tom's asking here, and I'll paraphrase it, but marketing football, marketing basketball, every university does that. There are a couple exceptions where a couple in maybe out in Maine where hockey's the big sport, or I think it wasn't Southwest Missouri State where women's basketball was the big one, and Oklahoma has maybe baseball, and there's a couple of schools, but mostly it's football and basketball, and mostly it's football and men's basketball.
Right.
How is it different to market and promote other Olympic sports? What do you do differently? I know you want to treat them all the same, but obviously from a revenue and expense point of view, things differ. From a fan base, it differs. So what attitude do you bring on board with that approach?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look, so soccer this year, we brought in a new soccer coach, and he came from the ACC, where in the ACC soccer is pretty strong, and he wasn't used to doing a ton of his own promotion, a ton of so when we went to him and we said, Coach, look here, the way that we build fan support is we get you and we get the team and we interact with the community, and a lot of it is not something that costs us money, it just costs us time. But if you put in the time, I think that's what makes Tennessee special on all fronts from all of our different sports, is that our fans, part of the reason they're so rabid and they feel like their opinion matters so much is because we bring them into the family. There's some places, okay, fans enter this gate, go in the stands, do this, do that, do this, and there's plenty. We let our fans interact, and a lot of our Olympic sport teams, we let them interact with the teams to get to know them. The great thing about volleyball is a lot of our diehard fans really feel like they know the players because they do. They talk to them after the match, tell them how much we appreciate their support. So a lot of times with those sports, I mean, Knoxville's a big soccer community, so that helps. But the parents have so many things going on. We took the coach and we said, look, we want you to know that soccer matters to us and that your support matters to us. And I could walk out there, shirt and tie, a polo, I could be giving away free stuff, and everybody says that's great. But when a member of the team or the coach goes out there and says, I want you to come support me, it means so much more. And we tap into that, and we tell them, hey, look, we're not going to ask for your time if we think it's going to be wasteful. When we ask for your time, we mean it, and we know that it's going to generate fans. So what we do, baseball and softball, I mean, if you look at it, our fan support there, we found new ways. At baseball, we put out in the outfield, we call them porches, which is basically a kind of a big hospitality area, but too many times people want to come to baseball games and they're confined to the seats and they don't really have time to get around. So we made, again, we were like, hey, come relax. There's rocking chairs out there. There's picnic tables. There's grills. There's all of that. And it's come relax, enjoy your family, enjoy your friends, enjoy your coworkers or, your church community or whatever it might be. There's baseball going on as well. We want you to cheer loud. And if you razz the left fielder, we're okay with that too. But, we created different things specific to the sport. At volleyball and soccer, we do a thing called a chalk talk where, those are sports that are sometimes hard to understand if you've never watched them before. And we bring them in, and the coaches do a great job of not only educating them on what the sport is and in volleyball, who the libero is and what they do, what to look for the other team when we do this and do that. And and it's part education and it's part endearing the fans of the program.
You mentioned with football and basketball, again, the major revenue sports, it's easy to set a revenue goal or butts in the seats goal. What kind of goals do you set when you do some of the Olympic sports? Is it still about number of fans in there? How do you, at the end of the season, know we done good?
It's butts and seats. In some of those Olympic sports, you do more of strictly just butts and seats. At volleyball, our ticket prices are $3 for adults and $1 for youth. So when you think about that from a business perspective, we're not going to have a big surplus off of volleyball. But for the program and for the overall athletic department program, the more butts and seats we have there, the better. If you want to look at bottom line, the more people you have there, you might sell some more T-shirts and some more Cokes and hot dogs and whatever it might be. They might come in and be new to the area and check out volleyball for the first time or check out soccer. And then our softball stadium is right next to it. Oh, I didn't realize they had softball as well. I'm going to come back over here in the spring. So, women's basketball, or volleyball, it's the same thing. Like, I didn't realize volleyball played here. I didn't realize basketball played here. So sometimes we're just getting exposure for another program. But, at volleyball, soccer, and softball, we do on Sundays, kids 12 and under get in free, and then the first 150 kids eat free, which is basically a free hot dog and a Coke. But what that does is if I'm a parent with 2 kids, I know that on Sundays I can go over there and my kids get in free. So for me and my spouse, I'm going to pay $6 to get in. All 4 of us get in for $6. The kids are going to get a free hot dog and Coke to start if we're there early enough. And then from there, it turns into hey, we need something cheap and easy to do, something that's fun, and they come over to the sports. We don't do a ton, but we've selected about 5 or 6, cause-related marketing efforts that we do, and we do one of those events at every single one of our Olympic sports, and even at men's and women's basketball. So we partnered with Second Harvest, and we'll hold a food drive event at every single sport. And again, donate 2 non-perishable food items, get in for free. Fan feels good about it. We get another butt in the seat. And then obviously we're helping out the community as well. But for a sport like soccer, a sport like volleyball, our goal is to average 1,000 people, and 1,000 people is a big difference, for the matches. We have a student rewards program where we reward the students for attending. More points for Olympic sports, less points for football's 1, volleyball's 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever it is. Bring a buddy, get an extra point for some of those Olympic sports. So it's more about getting people there, making it look good, feel good. Obviously, we're on TV more now with the SEC package. We want it to look good. And people get there, and then all of a sudden, boom, they have fun. A bunch of students about a year ago came. They're like, yeah, we'll come, pretty girls in short shorts. And next thing you know, now there's, 50 of them, and they're called Rob's Mob after our head volleyball coach. And it's not just because it's women's volleyball, because they did not realize how athletic that sport was and how much fun they could have with it and how hard, some of the kills are and how cool it is when 2 players go up for a block, so there's a ton of emotion in the sport of volleyball, and the students just really got into it. So
how do you, I'm right up the road from BYU, and over the last several years, soccer has just become crazy down there. The crowds, I think they're at the top or near the top with attendance. And I don't know enough if it was organic or if it was something that was done by the marketing department. In the perfect world, you'd like to be able to create that for every sport. How much of it is organic and it comes from nowhere and then you jump on as the marketing guys and try to build it? And how much of it can you really plan on doing through a campaign?
I think I'm going to answer your question with both points, because at least from our perspective, it's a planned organic effort. Because we know in soccer, I think you have to look at the different sport and what the history of the sport is. So a sport like soccer, the fans are a little more vocal. There's the chants, there's the horns, there's all of that. You got to create the environment for what the fans want. So for soccer, what we did is we went out to all the clubs, youth clubs, around the community, and basically said, come on out, be a part of it. if you want to bring within the SEC rules, bring noisemakers. There's different things that we've done to get around the rules. But basically what we do is we got a core group of people in and said, you guys love and appreciate soccer. Come to the matches. Help us set the tone. Help us set the atmosphere. And then now tell all your friends how much fun it was. And there was, again, the same thing that we did at volleyball was we brought all those guys in and we said, look how much fun this is. We're going to put you right next to the pep band. If you happen, in a clean way to razz some of the other teammates, the opposing team, we're okay with that. Again, keep it clean. Same thing at baseball, out on the porches. If people happen to have cheap sheets to kind of, get on the other team again in a clean way, we're okay with that. But what we do is we say, come in and help us set the atmosphere, and then once the atmosphere picks up, you might throw 6 or 7 things out of there, and when one of them finally catches on, then we come behind it and we say, oh, that's so great that you guys did that, now we want to support you. So, and there are times that things happen that we don't plan on, and we go to the people and ask them what we can do to help. We had a student at men's basketball who dressed up, painted his face, wore the cape, and just on his own accord decided that he was going to lead the student section in all these different cheers. And it picked up, and then we went to him and we said, hey, man, we love what you're doing. Now we want to kind of help you make it a little bit more official. And he was a little apprehensive because he said, I don't want to lose my credibility. Like if all of a sudden I'm only promoting what you guys want me to, am I really doing what the students want? So there's a balance between letting the organic group of folks still do what they do and not take anything away from them. But, hey, if you're going to bring your signs, why don't we do signs for you? So that's one less thing you got to pay for. And then bring all your friends and we'll give you more signs. So it's a mix. It's a mix. Sometimes the greatest idea is somebody else's. So
stealing ideas is a way of life in your profession. One of the things I love is having attended NACMA for several years earlier in my career is that nobody really sees in college athletics sees themselves as competing with each other, because it's not like you wake up on a Saturday morning and decide which team you're a fan of. You
right.
go to your team, and everybody shares ideas, which I think was great. But I'm going to put you on a spot now with a tough question here.
Okay.
Everyone who's listening and who will watch this in the archives are primarily high school marketing and sports marketing teachers and high school students.
Right.
Knowing where you've been, what you've been through, I'm gonna fire you from the University of Tennessee. I'm gonna stick you in whatever high school, and you're gonna do a sports marketing program. What have you learned in practicing this that you would want to take back to a high school environment to make the high school events as exciting and to make it a good learning experience for the students?
It's a good question. Sports is about passion. I mean, when you drill down deep, sports is about passion at any level. And I think if I left the University of Tennessee and went to a high school and was starting up the sport marketing program, there are people at that school, from other teachers, board members, students, whatever it might be, that have a passion about that place and about the sport. And I would get them together first, and say, what ideas do you guys have within reason? We're a high school now. We can't afford to do signs and digital billboards and newspaper ads, twice a week and all of that. But what ideas do we have? So when you and your friends are going to go talk about whether you're going to the high school game or not, what's the deciding factor? What makes you? We did a survey this year on UT students, and I think it can apply to anything. We were more interested in why they were not going as opposed to why they were going. Because if they're going, they're going. We want to know why you're not going and what are we competing against. Too much other things going on in life, you're not that interested, the team's performance, the schedule, whatever it might be. So what I would do, again, like I tell people all the time, we might think we're the smartest people in the world, but we really need to hear from the people that we're talking to. So at a high school, it's no different. You're talking to the students, to the community, to whatever it might be. If I went back to Kenosha and went back to Bradford, how am I going to get, 1,000 people at every football game, not just the Tremper game, because that brings everybody out. There are enough people, clearly, that people have an affinity to Bradford. So you're never going to get a Tremper fan, like you said, to come be a Bradford fan. But you might do something that's interesting enough that they might want to come check it out one time. So I think what I would do is figure out who is the demographic that are always going to come, and you still want to show them love and still say, hey, we really need you guys. But then you're going to shift your focus onto maybe they come one time, or maybe they have some time, free time to come check it out. The students, what is it that's going to want to make them come to the biggest game of the year, as well to the game that you're going to beat the team by 70 points, and just figuring out what your demographic wants. So we don't always have all the answers, but we can ask the right questions.
Well, Jimmy, I want to thank you for taking time out. I know you've got a busy schedule, what with the media running in there and trying to quote you all day and everything, but we appreciate.
I'm trying to keep them away.
I bet. Before we let you go, just let people know that coming up on our third session today is Matt Sanchez, and Matt is the content marketing manager for the Utah Jazz, so he's going to do a whole focus on an area that we didn't even touch with you, and that's by design. He's going to talk about all the digital efforts that they do with the Utah Jazz. So again, we want to thank you for taking the time out. Everybody who's watching now, there'll be just a little bit of orange in their veins that having listened to you. So hey, Rocky Top, right?
Appreciate it. Go Big Orange.
Take care.
All right. See you.
Bye-bye.